For the next part, what we're going to do is we're going to take our darker pencil, so our number 2 pencil or HB pencil, and we're going to start cleaning up these lines and drawing them in darker and getting a little bit more detail and so a few more guides in the middle of the body. So let's come down in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to start working on her shoes. So again, just like we had on the guidelines over here, we want to go from the ankle, and you're going to go straight down for the foot. Now the toe of the foot will be slightly off center to this side. So again, do the same thing here. That's the big toe. And then we're going to cut to the outside here and do the same thing here, showing a little bit of an angle favoring this side here. And you can also come over and look at the model that's provided. So basically her big toe is right in this area, and you're cutting towards it and back up. Now you want to come up the shoe and you're going to scoop upwards. So from the bottom of the shoe, come up, and whatever that distance is here, let's do the same thing over here. And then it's basically just scooping upwards. So now let's switch to our darker number 2 pencil, and we can go ahead and start to darken in what her shoe is doing. So for me, I personally like to have the shoes a little bit rounded looking. So I'll round off the corners here, back up into here. Then if you remember, there's kind of this big toe feeling right here. What you can do is a little curve downwards, a little half moon shape, off center, and then we can come in and just start to shade around the corner here and here. And then if you want to do a little shading on this side as well. And then for me, I can see that I made one shoe a little bit bigger than the other. So if I just take a basic look at my model, I can decide, does one look too big and one's too small? And I would say actually this shoe here looks a little too big. So I'll just trim a little bit off the outside. And now they're about the same size. Now let's take a look at her ankles. They're doing different things. So the leg here that is straight down, it has your typical inside ankle is high, outside ankle is low. So come over here to your drawing. The inside ankle again is up here at 9. The outside ankle is down here at 9 1/4. And the skin is basically, this is just the skin from her foot. So it's going from the ankle down into the shoe. And then the rest of this will just blend right into the rest of her calf and the outside of her leg. For the inside ankle, what I like to do is I'll blend this with the calf, come down and into the foot, and then the foot here will go slightly behind it. So you can go ahead and do that here. So come down into the ankle, the foot from the shoe will go slightly behind it. And then this will blend back up towards her knee. So now you have a sense of inside ankle, outside ankle. This one's higher, that one's lower. Let's move over to this side. Now since her foot is being pushed way off center and her leg is stretching over to meet it, you'll notice here that the outside ankle and the inside ankle feel like they're straight across from each other. Basically, this side of her foot is crunching. So just like her waist is crunching here, extending there, well, her ankle's doing the same thing. It's crunching here, extending here. So when we come over for these two ankles, basically the front ankle is right here, the outside ankle is right there, but they feel like they're more straight across from each other. Then we can go ahead and blend these back up into the leg. And for me, just now when I did that, I trimmed away a little bit too much right here at that arrow. So I'm going to go back in here. And because she's exaggeratedly popping her leg out, I really want to hit a corner, kind of a feel in here. So I'm going to come back and get that corner feeling back. I accidentally blended it too much. And it gives her that pop feel of her leg popping outwards. So let's go ahead and finish blending up towards the knee. So let's get your inside calf, sweetheart shape, and this is the outside with that little bit of a corner feel to it. Now we've already established the knees. Just take a look back at your model and get it inside of your head what's going on here. This is curving in, this one's curving out, and this is doing the opposite. Now let's blend these back up into the leg. And always remembering on this particular pose that this side of the leg gets really close here. And let's not draw the whole thing because her hand is going to be here later. So let's just start drawing part of it and then we'll stop when we get towards the hand. Now what we can do is let's start to establish some undergarments that she's wearing right here. What I've taught you so far is doing just very basic binding on some seams. This could be the bottom of a swimsuit or the bottom of some underwear. If you were studying the advanced pose, so we did an advanced static pose together and we turned it into like some lingerie. So let's go ahead and learn how to do this now. What I want to do is I want to go back to my 2H pencil and draw this in lightly first, and then I'll come back and I'll darken it in. So as you remember, the binding is a little bit wider here. And also, her garment will stick out beyond her skin. So what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll erase what her skin's doing. And then I'll get this binding to go out beyond that skin area. And then as it goes between the legs, it disappears. Now if I like what I'm drawing, then I'll go ahead and make this darker. If you're confident, obviously you can just do it dark the very first time. And again, that should stick out a little bit further than her skin. The bottom of her underwear here will curve downwards. Now let's go ahead and do some binding here. Right at, this is 3.5, so this was her high hip. So put in that high hip line and then turn around and make a little binding right there as well. And again, it should stick out just a little further than her skin. And now when you draw in the sides, this should be wider than her skin as well. Now that we're doing these contrapposto poses where the girl's shoulders are one angle, hips are one angle, you're going to have a hip bone that's going to pop out. Sometimes you'll see both, but mostly I'll just do it on the extension side. So come over here to where her waist is extending. And what we're going to do is right here from 3.5, this is the high hip, I want you to go straight up as if though you're following center front. And then make a corner coming back to the top of the hip bones. Now, if she was some kind of a block robot or made out of wood or something, you might just keep it like this. But what really is happening is this hip bone would eventually curve back into the top of the hip bone level. And then you can erase that corner. Now for me, what I'm making, it's kind of exaggerated. Eventually, this is another location where you'll start to develop your own style. Some people will keep this nice and crisp and sharp and edgy. Some people like it rounded. For me, I like it to be very just a little bit noticeable, but not too crazy. So for me, something like that is fine. And then here's her natural waist curving back inwards. Again, on this side, for the crunch side, I don't even do it. So here I would just have her top of hip bone just blend right into the waist and start heading up the rib cage. Now let's come into the waist area, and I want you to establish, again, we had the guidelines for the bottom of the rib cage. Let's get that nice and crisp. This is a guideline that you want to keep on your croquis because you're going to use this when you're drawing clothes. Again, this is top of the hip bones. Make sure that's nice and dark. And then for the sake of understanding where the natural waist is, let's go ahead and shade just this area. And then when I darken in her belly button, usually what I'll do, instead of drawing a complete oval, I'll just draw part of an oval, so something like this. At this point, I'm getting ready to start drawing her rib cage and a little bit of her upper arms. And for me, I feel like my distance here is wider on this side than it is on that side. I feel like her arm is sticking out a little too far. So I'm going to come back and just double check my measurements, and I'm going to make this a little less bowed out as well. Alright, so here I've drawn a little bit more so you can see this. Basically, the rib cage would come up, and at 2 heads down, it would corner out towards the arm, and this will make her armpit. So you would do that here on both sides. Then I went ahead and I darkened in her shoulder, coming down for her forearms, and her upper arms. And then her forearms are darkened those in. And then for the elbow joint here, you would just curve inwards for the outside, and you would come to a point here for the inside. So it has a little bit of an angle right here. For this arm, because it's just floating kind of straight down in space, we have this is just blending. So you can't even really see, but there's a little bit of poking outwards and back in, and then right here, it's just cupping back inwards. So over here, it's so small, to try and draw a little bone right here or something is a little bit ridiculous. So just curve this in and just make that straight. Boom. So this hand here on the model is going to be similar to what we did when we did the profile view and we did the relaxed profile view. If you can imagine taking this hand and flipping it over, then you can see that the thumb is just coming down, the webbing is close together. And basically all that's happening is her fingers are then curving in using these arcs. So you're just having the pointer finger and the middle finger curving down inwards. Now, if you recall, the layout for this hand is the full hand from the flat hand view. We're going to take this wrist width and we're going to trim it down. So we're cutting away from it. So now it's a smaller wrist width. And the thumb will come out here to arc B. So remember, it'll carve down and then back up and out to arc B. So taking a look at her hand here, you can see that the thumb comes up, around, back into there. Thumbnail. We're getting this bump for her middle finger, as well as this is her pointer finger. And the middle finger is extending down here. So we could do something similar to that. And we're getting this full view of the thumbnail. Then the knuckles on the hand is right here at this outer guideline. So we'll come in and we'll get that here. And this is the underside of her pointer finger. And then again, the middle finger is going to extend beyond what the pointer finger is doing. And you can see here in real life, you don't see her ring finger or her pinky finger. So it's just a matter of getting the stair stepping between her pointer finger and her middle finger, and everything else is just hiding. Again, remembering that there's on arc B, there's a knuckle, arc A, there's a knuckle. The fingertips are straight at the fingernail and curved under on the underside where her fingerprints are. For the other hand here, it's similar to her having this profile view hand, something like this, and then a combination of moving into just a flat hand view. So you can start to see her knuckles are rolling to the outside. So it's not a true profile view, it's moving to the outside, and we can see some more knuckles and some more fingers out here that are tucking away. So it's a little bit of this view from a 3/4 point of view. So it's a combination between these two hands. So if we come in here to analyze this hand, you can see that the thumb is cutting in. So it's a relaxed thumb coming into the hand. And we're seeing 3/4 thumbnail. And then the pointer finger is way close to the middle of the hand here. So where there's that arc A and arc B, this would be arc C out here. Where arc A is in the center of the hand, this is where we would start our pointer finger heading towards arc B and then heading towards the outside edge. Then the other fingers, we have the middle finger knuckle, and as it travels towards arch B, it'll just bend behind the pointer, and then the rest of the hand is basically doing the same thing. So again, we're going to do the profile hand. So we're going to cut away from the wrist before we bring the thumb out and back. And then since it's this 3/4 view, we'll see a little bit more of the thumb than normal. And you'll have your 3/4 thumbnail. And again, the pointer finger, the knuckle at arc B is really close to the center of the hand. So here's the center of the hand, arc A, sorry. This would be that knuckle of the pointer finger. And it will travel out to arc B and then angle again for arc C. This is the fingernail, so it's a sharp straight line. Then the underside will curve down and come back around for the webbing at the thumb. Then the middle finger will be a knuckle here, traveling to arc B, going behind the pointer. And the rest of the hand will do the same thing. So then if we erase some of these guidelines, and then with a sharp number 2 pencil, we can come in here and finish these fingers nice and dark, and you also have a second chance to come in and clean things up. Now out here at the wrist, for the outside of her hand where her pinkies are, you'll see the little wrist bone. So put in a little wrist bone there before you travel back to the forearm. And we'll get the same thing here. So let's erase some of this extra information. We'll get her wrist bone is right there, and then her forearm and her hand. Now stepping back from this and just taking a quick glance at it, I feel like the pointer finger should be longer. The hand itself feels really short and stubby. So I'm going to just erase these right here, make this pointer finger a little bit longer. I'll make this middle finger kind of join it down here. And I'll get some more of this hand back in this area. And that looks better now. Now that I finished drawing the hand here, that was a little bit in front of her leg, I can go ahead and finish drawing the leg. For some of you, the thumb might be in front, and that's okay. For me, the thumb is just off to the side, so I can draw the leg complete all the way through. If your thumb is in front of the leg, just draw the part of the leg you can see on both sides of the thumb. Now down in this leg area, we want to keep these guidelines for once we start drawing clothes. We need to know where the center seam is if we're going to do like jeans, pants with the slacks, with the center crease, or if you're going to have a skirt and it's going to have a slit up the front. So let's come down to the legs here. Go ahead and darken in where you have the top of the cylinder. And then the center line for each upper leg heading towards the kneecap. And then continue in the center line down to the ankle. And at the ankle, you're going to want to have this bottom of the cylinder, and that's going to let you know where you will end something if it was like leggings or yoga pants or something. Let's go ahead and get the other side here. So this is the center of the leg to the center of the knee, and the center of the knee to the center of the ankle. And down here at the upper ankle, go ahead and show where you would end a pair of leggings. Now down here, we need 9 1/4 is our guideline for if we're doing ankle length dress. So go ahead and get your guideline for the ankle length dress here, and then remembering down here it's slightly lower. So if you were drawing a hem, you would probably have it hit this guideline, slightly curve and dip and down, and hit that one as well because her leg is poking out. Now we're ready to come up to the midsection here. Again, we're darkening everything in, so keep using your number 2 pencil. Right here at the full hip, we want that guideline. So darken in that guideline. And we also need this center front guideline here. So it's going to go from the belly button to the middle of the bottom of her crotch area. Now at this location, this was the bottom of her armpits, and just below that is the apex of her bust. But realistically, this is a little bit too low for the apex for her bust. It should be a little bit higher than this. Also, when you are drawing a seam going across the apex, it's going to scoop upwards. So to find that location, what we're going to do is down here at the rib cage, we want to divide this in half on this side and do the same thing on this side. Then come up here to the bust level, divide this in half, and divide this in half. And double check that you're doing this correctly. Now what we can do is we can go from the rib cage up towards the apex, and this is going to be the princess panel. With that princess panel, now we can put in the arc for what will eventually be her bust apex. What we want to do is we want to establish the width of her bra and underwire first. So from center front, come over just a little bit to this side and a little bit to that side. And then on the outside edge here, come in a little bit on both sides. And this will be the beginning stages for the arc for her bust level. Then where these arcs are crossing over the princess panel, this is truly going to be the apex for your Croquis bust. Now, before we can establish where the straps would go for the shoulder, as well as the cut here if it was sleeveless, we need to know where the neck is so we can divide this distance in half. So at this point in time, we need to draw her face in here, and then we'll put her neck on this as well. When you put your face in here on your Croquis, basically we just need the simple face features plus her ears, and then the hair guideline and her neck. Now we already have these guidelines in here, but when you're drawing the face, some of these are in the way. So for instance, we don't need a guideline here for the bottom of the bottom lip or the tip of the nose. So let's erase those to start, but make sure you keep these dots right here on the face so you know where those features go. Now once you've established her face, what we need to do is we need to get her neck. If you recall, where the neck is the outside edge of her iris. So find the outside edge of her iris and come straight down with the plumb line, and this will be her neck. And it'll go from the bottom of her jawline down to the shoulder. Now the neck looks a little bit strange just going straight down with the plumb line. But now we have a sense of the width of the neck. We can go ahead and get it to start to curve to match up with these shoulders. So what I would do is I would lightly erase one of them, and I'm keeping the same starting point, but I'll move and curve down towards her shoulder here. And essentially this one would do the same thing. So I would do this slight outside curve and come back to the neck. And you don't want to get too crazy and too curvy, or else it's going to look really strange. Now what we want is the bottom of the neck here should look like the bottom of a dress form. How you can find that is from the shoulder level up to where the trapezius was hitting back here, we can draw an oval the same width as the neck. And this gives us an idea for drawing the curve for the bottom of the neck at the shoulder level. Now that we have that in place, let's go ahead and get this shoulder guideline dark again. And then down here at the armholes, we have to keep this line that's connecting. So again, this was the rib cage going up to the shoulder. Above the armpit, we still have to keep that line because this is going to be the seam on her shirt. So this will be where the shirt stops and the sleeve starts. Now we can come back and get this trapezius muscle to go behind her neck. So what I'll do is I'll erase it back inside of here. And it's going from the shoulder and connecting back to going behind the neck. And at this point I'll do just a slight outside curve. Remembering that you'll leave lots of room between her jawbone and her shoulders for when you come in and start drawing collars for dress shirts or big fur collars on jackets. Now that we have the neck and the trapezius muscle, we can find the middle of that, and that's where your shoulder strap would head towards. So once you find the middle of the trapezius muscles, then we can aim that back for that new apex. Now here you're going to notice, since the girl is moving, these princess panels will have a little bit of an angle to them. So for instance, the one on the shoulder here, let me just double check this, is aiming towards the bust apex, and then I pivot my ruler to come down here and meet the middle at the rib cage. On the left side, it's similar to where this is coming down, pivot, boom, we're hitting down in here. Now what we can do is going just a little bit below the armpit level. So this is in between 2 and 2 1/4. We're going to start drawing in here what will be the cut of a sleeveless dress, or if you were doing a tank top. And that'll meet up here at the princess panel. So again, it's in between the armpit and her bust apex. And let's do the same thing on this side. If everything looks correct, go ahead and darken those in. And then also we need to darken in the center front. And it's going to go from the throat down to the bottom of the rib cage as a straight line. If you're drawing some clothes and you're continuing from this bodice down into the lower body, you would curve here at the waist area. So it would be straight coming down here, curve, and then straight for the bottom half. Alright, so let's take a final look here at our model. So the basics are her shoulders are popping to the right side and her hips and knees are popping to the left side. This lower section, the center front is square with the hips and the upper bodice is square. The center front is square with the shoulders and the rib cage. It's really important that you understand that. The plumb line went down closest to this leg here, which means her throat and this leg here are close together because her weight is on this leg. This leg, she extended it away from the body so it has less weight on it. And also she moved it forward more towards the camera. So on the floor, this foot actually comes forward just a titch, which has extended this leg just a little bit longer than normal in order to achieve that. Also, she's popping this calf muscle outwards a little bit. And then she has her foot squared back down onto the floor. For her arms, basically we just have her arms. The upper arm is relaxing down with the shape of her body, and then the forearms are just flowing over the hips, and the hands again are just dropping down with gravity, so she looks really relaxed. Double check that you have all of your guidelines in here dark, and everything should look like you see it here. Again, because later on when she's moving and doing stuff, it's not going to be as cut and dry as just a straight line. Let's find them now below the waist. So come over here to the top of the hip bones, find the center, and then come down here to her full hip. At this point, you have to ignore these two center points on her legs. Those are not what we want. What we want here is the full hip coming back towards center front. What is the halfway point? And then the same thing on this side. Full hip, halfway point. Just making sure you totally ignore these two things right here. Now when we connect this back to here, you want to mimic this curve shape. So her hip curve shape, we're doing something similar to that. Got a slight curve to it. So if it helps, look at the curve first and then come over and get this. And now we have our princess panels. If you've done them correctly and everything looks right, then let's go ahead and darken them in. You'll also want to darken in center front for the torso and below, down at the swimsuit level. Down here, if you want to separate her underwear from her skin, something we can do is right along this princess panel right here, what you could do is something like a little zigzag stitch. It'll look like it's got a flat lock stitch on there. And basically just doing rounded zigzags. If you want to put a little bow on here, you can do something like that as well. And then we can also just shade along the corners, the outside edges. Just a little bit of shading coming into the underwears. And then if you want to emphasize this curve down here as well, shade coming up. Again, normally you won't do very much shading on your croquis, but this is just fun to do for having a little bit of clothes on your croquis. Now that you've completed this assignment, I want you to scan this page and turn it into me, along with analyzing from the front page. And then the last page here, you're going to do 2 more girls. So on the blank page, I already have the heads placed for you and the plumb line placed for you. And then you're going to put the 2 girls on this page. Make sure that they are mirrored. So one girl's facing one way, the other girl's facing the other way. If you use this pose here, off to the right side, then you'll notice when you put both of them together, they'll both have the same exact foot in the middle.